Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to little old me and my little old podcast. But I love to say this now that my little old podcast has turned into something that folks still can't figure it out from all over the world are tuning into. So I want to thank all of my listeners from all over the world that have been tuning in. And really, the fact that you're coming back, it just means so much to me. So make no mistake about it. People that take time out of their lives, to give me their time, that means something to me, and I'm forever grateful for that. As such, I keep trying to find great guests for the show, and I think I've got a good one tonight that we're really going to enjoy. And I'm actually looking forward to this because I'm slowly getting to know him outside of the studio, and a very interesting gentleman. I also want to give a couple of updates on things. Call this your administrivia, but an important thing is, as everyone knows, I have been elected, or I should say appointed, the honorary consular for Pittsburgh by the Italian government. I do have an office downtown. People keep going to the wrong office. Please go check out the website. Go out to ItalianImpactWeekly.com. I'm going to put some links out there, or just look up the Pittsburgh Honorary Consulate, and you should find my website. But, I'm trying to do everything I can to support the community. I'm getting a lot of questions from both Italian citizens, not just in Pittsburgh. They're coming from, Virginia, West Virginia, different spots of Pennsylvania. I even got somebody from Colorado, folks from North Dakota call me, and I'm okay with that. This is an honorary, non-paid volunteer position that I accepted, knowing full well it was coming, and I'm glad to do it. I'm glad to support you. So if you have any questions on anything, whether it's, administrivia from the Italian government, you're interested in your citizenship, visa questions, even though I can't help you, I'll gladly at least answer the phone. But renewing passports or just needing something from the Italian government, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be glad to help you out. The other thing I keep pushing over and over and over again, and you're probably sick of me saying it, is the documentary. Why? Once more, this is the 80 year anniversary of the end of the war. A lot of the Italian families are coming back to Pennsylvania, specifically to Chambersburg, to kind of remember their fathers and grandfathers who built that chapel at Letterkenny Army Depot during the war, while they were imprisoned here. And from that chapel came so much hope. It's such an inspirational story, but they're coming back here. So I'm hoping you can watch the documentary, Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner. It's available on Amazon. Watch the documentary. And then more importantly, I'm hoping I see you in Chambersburg September 11th and 12th for all of the festivities that are going to be going on. So if you can make it, I would really love to see you there. I will be there. I will have my camera crew will be there. And we're going to have just a great time. So hopefully I'll see you in Chambersburg. In addition, one little fun fact, I am going to be working on another documentary this year, which will also be filmed here in Pennsylvania and in Italy. So more details coming soon. It's going to kind of quasi-surprise. I've already told some folks, so it's kind of out there. But I'm very excited about this one because this one sort of came as a, indirect result of, just me having been in Italy last year for this. I just happened to met somebody, and the next thing you know, I'm hearing stories about something else, and I'm going, wow, never knew this. It is my passion to capture history in an entertaining way so that we can both learn, but more importantly, memorialize and never forget the sacrifices and the decisions of the people that came before us, which is why we're able to be here and enjoy life the way we do. So please get out to the website, ItalianImpactWeekly.com, and go read more of what's following up. And if you have any questions, you can reach me at questions@ItalianImpactWeekly.com. Again, that's questions@ItalianImpactWeekly.com. All right, enough of that blathering. Let's get to the real meat of the show, and that's the guest. And I got a great guest today, author, successful businessman, and just turning into a friend. I'm really appreciative of the fact that I know this guy's busy, and he joined my show all the way from Florida, if I'm not mistaken, Lou. But this is Lou Bruno, an author of a wonderful book that I'm actually reading right now. And Lou, I can't even remember how we met, to tell you the truth, but welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mancini. And it is an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you're on here, and I really appreciate you taking time out. Again, I know you're busy. But you know what? I was kind of having a flashback moment there, and I'm trying to remember, how the heck did we meet?
Well, here's how we met. Okay. Pamela Dean wrote a review of The Love of San Demetrio in La Nostra Voce, the official publication of the Italian Sons and Daughters of America. And facing on the next page, the next issue, you were in there. And I saw the great thing of you being, on your honorary. And I wrote a note to you, and I said, congratulations, and maybe we should talk sometime. And here we are.
And the next thing, things lead to another. But, it's funny what a small world it is because, you're down in Florida, correct?
Orlando, yes.
That's what I keep remembering now. Because I know in the book, you ended up going over to Houston, but we'll get into all that in a little bit. But, it's that small world, and Pittsburghers can be found everywhere. That's all I got to say about that. By the way, I know you've been to Italy. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. You've been to the Steeler Bar in Rome, correct?
I have been to the Steeler Bar in Rome, and I'll tell you a story about that. Steeler fans will appreciate. It's very funny. I go to the Steeler Bar over there, and I'm walking in right as we're playing the Colts, right as I forget the safety that we picked up a couple years ago was really good. He intercepts it and runs it back for a pick six, right as I'm walking in. And everybody's screaming and hooting and hollering. Of course, you have the usual fun time that you have there at the Steeler Bar. And it was time for us to go. And me and my wife and my daughters, we start walking out. And right as I'm walking out, this guy, of course, you take the obligatory picture, right, in front of the Jesus statue with the rosary on him and, the Steeler helmet on, okay? And I'm about to leave, and this guy grabs me by the arm, and he goes, "You can't leave now. You were the one that walked in when we had the pick six. You can't leave."
Did you stay?
Die-hard Steeler fans. Yeah, I stayed for a while.
We're not superstitious. No, we're not superstitious. It was. No, actually, we are superstitious because
No, yeah.
Oh God, that's funny. But so Lou, let's talk a little bit about you now. You're obviously grew up in Western PA, but you're very passionate about Italian culture. And, we're going to get to the book because that's sort of, a detailed testimony of the importance of tracing one's roots. And that's been my whole theme of the show, is to continue to know where you've come from for a lot of reasons. And again, we're going to get all of this. But let's start up with, you, who are you, where are you from, and all that. Just give me the kind of the basics for folks that are just tuning in.
Sure. Well, I'm only 100% Italian, okay? Last name Bruno, that's pretty obvious. By coincidence, I live in Orlando. My mother's maiden name, Orlando. So 100% Italian, grew up in western Pennsylvania in a small town about 40 miles west of Pittsburgh called Midland, a little steel town. And I absolutely loved growing up in western Pennsylvania. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, which I know you taught there for a while. Mm-hmm. And but I always hated cold weather and wanted to live my adult life in the South. So from there, I went and lived my adult life in the South and raised my family here in Orlando, Florida.
Do you ever miss this weather?
I do not. And I actually talk about that in the book about being a kid and hating the cold weather. So
with a capital H, if I'm not mistaken, you said, hate in the book.
Yeah, I really got my dream come true when I interviewed in college, and the interview ended with, well, the territory that we have open, you would have to cover Miami Beach and the Florida Keys. I don't remember anything that he said after that, how much money I was going to make or anything. All I knew was I'd never been to Florida before. I loved warm weather, and my territory was going to be Miami Beach and the Florida Keys. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
You know the irony in that? Well, I'll tell you two things. One, I'll say this because I've lived all over the world, and I've also lived in places like San Diego, and I actually was stationed down in Florida for a while. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but the only thing why I say you might miss the weather is there's something about four seasons that makes you appreciate each season. So when it's really steaming, miserable hot, you're like, man, it's just hot. And you're either forced to be inside or just forced to be, hot. And so winter, it's kind of the opposite. You're like, wow, it's cold. I wish it was hot. And when it's hot, you wish it was cold. We never, I just remember never really, I never was able to get comfortable, especially like San Diego. It's 70-something degrees year round. Winter is 3 days long, and then it's just beautiful weather. But I don't know. There was just something about four seasons. I just feel like I needed it because I was so used to it. Not that I would complain entirely about being in nice weather, but I think we don't appreciate it unless you remember. Like if you haven't come from four seasons, you really don't appreciate nice weather.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I think you pay your weather dues no matter where you live.
That.
I call them weather dues. In
like
Florida,
that.
we pay them in the summertime. It's hot in June, July, August, and September, but then we have October, November, December is beautiful, February, March, April, May. 7 months of beautiful weather. January is a little bit cold. That's what we call winter when it goes down into the 30s, like 5 or 6 nights in January. That's winter. So, and that's about as much winter as I like.
All right, so you grow up in Western Pennsylvania. Now, what's interesting too is I never realized growing up how many small steel towns there were. Like everyone thinks steel towns, they think the big cities, whether it's Cleveland or Pittsburgh or something like that. But you don't realize how many other towns border these big towns that are literally built up around a factory. Now, your father, he grew up in the mills. I mean, when he immigrated over here, he came and worked right for the mill. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was actually my grandfather. Okay, so my grandfather and grandmother came over in the 19-teens, and they came over to work in the mill. And here's the interesting thing, okay? They were from San Demetrio nei Vestini. There are two San Demetrios in Italy. This one is San Demetrio nei Vestini. It's about 85 miles northeast of Rome, not too far from Aquila, about 10 miles from Aquila. These were people who, in the early 1900s, wouldn't travel 10 miles to Aquila. They would think you were crazy if you even suggested it. Yet they left everything that they knew and traveled over 5,000 miles. They didn't get on an airplane. We know that. I mean, they took a horse and carriage to a place where they could get on a train down to Naples, and then they got on a boat, and then they landed in New York or Boston, and then they had to get on a train again to go to Pennsylvania. It was not easy. They made a tremendous sacrifice and a tremendous leap of faith to do that.
Now, it's funny because that's exactly what I was talking about before when I said we got to remember this. These weren't easy decisions for them. They were literally going in some ways into the unknown, and the only thing they knew was if they had either a relative or friend in the States and said, come here, I can sponsor you and get you something. But there was no guarantees back then, and it wasn't instant communications like we have now. And I think people really, really, really need to appreciate that daringness, that sacrifice, that willingness just to look and say, look, I don't know what's over there, but I know what's here is not that good. Now, you also said the 10 miles from Aquila, because I actually know where you're at. You're up in the Abruzzo area. Now, what was the reason for that? Just simply, was it a poverty issue, or it was like, why do I need to go there?
It was for the steel mills and the jobs and the poverty and the state of what Italy was like there in the early 1900s.
Right, but I mean, you said they wouldn't even go to Aquila. Like they just simply didn't leave their towns.
I'm just saying that that was too far of a distance for them, 10 miles. But they traveled 5,000. And you hit on a key point, and I summarize it by saying, today we have the benefit of hindsight to look back with certainty on a journey that they faced that was filled with uncertainty. And my point through the book, which comes out, and I don't hit you over the head with it. You got to read it, and it kind of oozes out of all the pores. But it's the Italian heritage and the timeless values that we have of love, of faith, and of perseverance. That's how they got through it. That's how they did it. And we get the benefit of standing on their shoulders. Here we are as professionals, you having a doctorate, other listeners having various professional jobs and whatever. And these are people that barely had grade school educations. But without their sacrifice and without the risk that they took, we're not here. I'm not talking to you.
That's exactly right. And that's why it's important to not forget, to not tear down, statues and history and buildings and churches just because there was a time when people put a lot into that, and it's just so insulting to those generations to just say, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. It's like, if it doesn't mean anything, then no pun intended, but you've missed the boat. But I do want to talk about, compare when you're growing up to now. When you were growing up, did you have this appreciation? Because ultimately, the next phase of questions is going to be about the book, but I want to transition there. Because later on in life, you write the book. But when you're growing up, are you thinking this way, or is everything just, it's normal, and at some point a switch clicks inside of you?
Yeah, well, okay. I didn't realize until after I read the book that what I'm about to tell you was a thing. And that is, my grandparents and my parents did not speak Italian in the house. Okay? On a rare occasion when my grandmother didn't understand something, my dad would give her a little Italian phrase so that she followed the conversation. But they made a conscious effort to speak English, and my grandmother spoke broken English, which was a lot of fun. I used to make fun of it as a kid. So I grew up in a steel town. It's a multi-ethnic town, and obviously I knew I was Italian, but there were people from many different backgrounds from Europe, and we just all got together, and we thought of ourselves as Americans and kids growing up in a steel town in Midland and playing football and basketball together and that type of stuff. So we didn't give our heritage that much of a thought in those days. It was just living and enjoying life, and that's what the first part of my book is about. It's just like growing up, somewhat carefree, somewhat clueless, but hearing some stories that take on a new meaning later in life.
Now let's transition now into the book. So what was the impetus for thinking, hey, I want to write a book about all of these things that I finally started learning about and appreciating in life?
Okay, so I have to give you a little bit of context here, okay? And that is that the first 50 years of my life, I heard stories about how our family got here and how they survived. And here's a short version of it. They came in the mid-19-teens. By 1923, my grandmother had 4 children already, including, thank God, my dad, and was pregnant with the 5th when my grandfather got ill. Now, it's kind of hazy as to what his issue was. I had heard a little bit about it. Might have been a kidney disease, and it might have been some type of infection, certainly something that today you would be able to function and live a normal life with. But in those days, they didn't know what to tell him. They tried everything, and they said, maybe you need to get some fresh air. I mean, when I grew up in Midland, even in the 50s, the sky turned orange in the middle of the afternoon when they let out the coke ovens, all right? So I understood that story, right? So here he is. He's got a wife. He's got 4 kids. He's got 1 on the way, and he knows he's going back to Italy in the summer of 23. He thinks he'll be back by the spring, right? Because he doesn't want to cross the ocean in the winter. All right, maybe that's where I get my cold weather thing from. But anyway, so he's standing on the front porch of this duplex, and he says to the person living next door, who happens to be his best friend, almost like a brother to him, and his wife, who happens to be my grandmother's sister, okay? Possibly an arranged marriage, right? And he said, listen, I'm going to Italy. I don't know when I'm going to be back. Could you help us out? Could you at least take the youngest one, Rudy, who's like 15 months old, and can you watch him? Because my wife's going to be having this baby. She's going to be nursing the baby and everything else. Can you help out? And they didn't have any children of their own, and they said, sure, we'll help out. So on that fateful day, 2 people left a duplex on Midland Avenue, never to return. My grandfather and my Uncle Rudy.
Wow.
And I knew that, and my Uncle Rudy was someone who we did know, okay? He did not grow up with the family, but we did know. As a matter of fact, when I talked about moving to Florida, when I moved to Miami and started my work life, Rudy lived in Miami. So I got to know him as a young adult. So that's kind of the background. I'll pause there and give you the opportunity to ask any follow-up questions.
No,
and we can move from there.
That's a heck of a start. Let's just kind of jump right in then. What happened to your dad? And Rudy never comes back with his siblings.
Rudy never gets to live with his siblings, okay? So I move to Florida. I meet him. He's taking care of his wife, who had multiple sclerosis, and he's living a rough life. He's got Crohn's disease, which for your listeners who aren't aware, it's kind of an intestinal disease caused by stress. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I could see why. I mean, he's taking care of his wife, and his wife was a beautiful, wonderful woman, and she actually passed away while I was living there. Well, all time passes, and I go to get married, and I do a unique thing. I got to love Rudy so much, I picked him as my best man.
Oh, wow.
Which is very rare that you pick someone who's not your age to be your best man. But I got to know him and love him so much, and I felt like it would bring joy to his life as well as mine, and I did. And then time passes. I start having my own family. Me and my wife start becoming the aunts and uncles that we're looking up to. And Rudy and Connie was the one that my grandmother was pregnant with. My grandmother lived into her mid-90s, 65 additional years after my grandfather passed away. She lives as a widow, being taken care of by one of my uncles who did not marry. And when she passes away, my Aunt Connie, the only daughter, the one she was pregnant with, writes this flowery story, 25 pages long, about mother and what the mother hen she was like, and how she used to get on the train and trolley and go to Pittsburgh, and she used to buy oil and flour in bulk, and she used to come back and she used to bake bread for the mill workers, and she used to make wine and all this other good stuff, and this is how we survived. It's a beautiful story. And my Aunt Connie, who I developed her character in the book, very sweet woman, wonderful woman, told a beautiful story. Well, a year later, my Uncle Rudy writes a story, which he calls The Reverse Side of the Coin.
Huh.
And he basically says, you guys thought that you had it bad and you were poor, and you thought I had it good because I was an only child. But here's what really happened. And he lays out the pain and the suffering that he had from being separated from his family, seeing them sometimes in the summer for a week or two or maybe even a month, but then having to go back and not being able to grow up with my dad and his other brothers and his sister. So when I got that, he sent copies of that only to his siblings and to me, his best man. I read the story, and I was talking to my dad. I pick up the phone. I call my dad. I go, Dad, did you get this letter from Rudy? And he goes, yeah, I did. He goes, it's total bullcrap. I put it in an envelope and I sent it back to him. Now I got to tell you that my dad absolutely loved Rudy, and for him to say that was really stunning to me. So no one believed Rudy's side of the story. But part of what I develop in the book is that he was so meticulous and such an articulate businessman that the things that he put in writing in this story is something that I knew he wouldn't put in writing if someone could fact check it and it would be false. So he said some pretty amazing things that I can't get into right here, and that's part of what reading the book is all about. But I knew it was a mystery. So I pick up the phone and I call Rudy, thinking I'm going to use my BS in psychology from the University of Pittsburgh, which I jokingly say is mostly BS. But it's not all BS, right? It is something important of the concept that people process information differently based on their background and experience, right?
All right.
Okay? So I'm listening to Rudy. I'm listening to him tell him the story. I'm trying to let him get his facts out without having him get, upset just telling the story. And I think that, I'm the one counseling him, and I'm getting through this phone call, and everything's fine. And at the end of the phone call, he drops a bombshell on me, which I can't get into right now. It's part of the book. But he basically says some things that seem like they could not possibly be true. And that was kind of very, very difficult for me to understand and appreciate. So I talk about the first 50 years, right? when I went to Italy, which was in 2006, we had our oldest daughter had a semester in Rome. And it's when I went to Italy, and the way I describe it is I spent 50 years in America trying to understand and process my family story. And I spent 1 week in Italy and 1 day in San Demetrio to complete the story. So half the book, 50 years in the U.S., and the other half is 1 week in Italy, takes the other half of the book to process and explain.
I'm done with the U.S. part. I'm just getting to you're leaving. I want to go into I know we don't want to spoil it. I want folks to read the book because, like I said, I'm a little more than halfway based on page numbers. For folks listening, I think a big takeaway is a couple of things. One, the truth is always in the middle, usually. And I think that when you have family issues, and to your point, we don't want to spoil certain things, but when you have family issues, exactly what you said, everybody has a different experience. You could be in the same room with two different people and they both see it completely different. It's like going to a dinner in a restaurant. One says this is the greatest thing in the world. One says this is the worst thing in the world. So there is a perception as reality. Do you agree with that, or is it no, this is pretty much just something that was kept from me?
Well, it wasn't kept from me. It wasn't really kept from anyone. I mean, the story was there.
Right. Okay.
The story was there the whole time. I think that even what happened and how it was revealed to me. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about that. I go to Italy. The person that picks me up at the airport, never met before, but I knew him because I had siblings that had gone there. His name's a unique name, Ottorino, my father's cousin. My father's cousin by virtue of the fact that Ottorino's father and my grandfather, who passed away, were brothers. As a matter of fact, Ottorino's father took care of my grandfather, before he died. Okay? So I go to meet Ottorino. By the time it's 2006, Rudy's gone. She's passed away. Victor, my Uncle Victor, who took care of my grandmother, he's gone. Everybody's gone. Well, I land in Rome, and obviously I knew what he looked like, but I hadn't seen him in person, and I'm kind of peering through customs and trying to see, who is he there, where's he going to meet me and everything. And I see this guy, and when he turns to the left, he looks like Rudy. And when he turns to the right, he looks like Vic. And when I got through customs and I said hello and gave him a hug, I just started to cry because here it was, the two uncles that I loved the most. And I'm kind of re-meeting them in Ottorino. And we hit it off like right away. And I'm thinking to myself, I feel like I've known this guy all my life. But I've only been in the car with him for 15 minutes and we're telling each other inside jokes and finishing each other's sentences. It was mind-boggling to me because I say as we process through the book and as I go to San Demetrio, here's another thing, San Demetrio, right? First place we went was the graveyard. I start walking through the graveyard to this mausoleum area that Ottorino is leading to me to see where my grandfather is buried, and I see all these last names. Ulizio, DiMaggio, De Prospero, Liberator. These were the names of all the kids that I played basketball with and curveball and swam at the swimming pool with. And it was just amazing. I would see that, and then I would see these gardens on the hills. I had this one grand uncle who had a garden on a terraced hill in Midland, Pennsylvania, and nobody understands. Why did he build the garden on the hill? Why didn't he build it on the flat? Well, they were basically taking what they knew and understood from their country and recreating it in Midland. So what I found was I felt like I was leaving someplace, Orlando and the U.S., to go away someplace, Italy. And what I realized once I got there, well, I wasn't going away. I was going home.
Yes. So I'm glad you said that because I have had the exact same thing happen to me. When you go back to places where your relatives come from, there is something. I don't know how to explain it. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel it's like almost like as if we grew out of the ground and someone pulled us out of the ground and moved us to another yard. And when we go back to that ground, it's like we're back where we were taken from. I know it sounds crazy, but there's just something about it. How does that change you when you go back there? Like you said, you feel like I'm going home. What does that do to you?
It's really amazing. I mean, I'm of course, I was still in my work life, right? Pretty serious guy, trying to raise a large family, and just really, really busy guy. And I, kind of keep a lid on my emotions. I think I cried more the week I was in Italy than I ever did up to my life before there. It's just, it was like, I didn't realize I was crying. I would just see something, and that was the reaction. There was nothing else to do. Those were the words, tears of love, of appreciation, of emotion, of seeing those things. And it was incredible. And going back to your point, I don't necessarily believe the concept that the truth is in the middle. The truth is somewhere. But if you go back to the psychology thing, and people are a product of their background and experience, and let's use a restaurant example. If you go in and you say the best thing was the steak, and I say the best thing was the tiramisu, does that mean you're right and I'm wrong? Or were we both right? We saw what we enjoyed the most and we liked it. And I think that's true a lot in stories that are told. The story my Aunt Connie told, who idolized her mother, and why shouldn't she? A single woman in the 1920s raises 4 kids on her own and gives up one of her sons? Why shouldn't you admire that?
Right.
Okay? And Rudy, he just wanted to set the record straight. He was not, his letter, when you get to that point and you read it, it was not full, it was full of pain for sure, but it was not, vindictive or anything else like that. It was just like, you guys need to hear my story. And he was 72 years old when he wrote that. It makes me think a lot of your movie, which is, I've seen it, and I recommend your listeners to watch Fidel the Soldier Prisoner, because I think it's outstanding. But one of the parts of that and the parallels is Ronnie's story. You remember Ronnie's story?
Yep.
And Ronnie couldn't speak. Why? Because he didn't know who his dad was. Now, this is slightly different, but there's a lot of parallels there. And I think that when you get into that, you realize that it's not about who's right and who's not right. It's about listening to the story, appreciating everyone's point of view, and realizing the overall themes and what got them through that. And it was faith, love, and unwavering perseverance, which I think are 3 qualities that are true and strong in the Italian heritage. And the other thing that I would mention is gratitude. It is very important. And that's kind of why I wrote the book. So again, talk about how I wrote the book. We're getting there. So I hear this. So we're in San Demetrio. Otorino very innocently tells me his version of what happened to our family, and it was the piece that put everything together. I couldn't believe I was hearing it. Me and my wife were the only 2 people that knew the rest of the story, and we looked at each other. We were about 20 feet away from each other, and we just started crying. It's like, did we really hear what we just heard? And what I was looking at, my view, when I got, as Paul Harvey would call the rest of the story, my view was the cover of the book, which is standing on the land that the Bruno family owned and looking down at the cemetery in San Demetrio. And that's why it's on the cover of the book.
Wow. Fantastic. I guess I don't know how to ask this question, but it's kind of a weird question. But when all of this comes to fruition, and you're all kind of like, okay, I get it. You essentially have a complete picture of your life. Now I'm going to kind of go to your Uncle Rudy. Just regardless of the why, he had to go get raised by someone else. Your father went off. Obviously, we're not going to talk about your father. He doesn't come back. The fact that you have a kind of like this family gets broken. Not to your point. It's not necessarily a nefarious thing. It's just an unfortunate reality of that time. You said something that you talk about that faith, and you kind of threw the Ronnie story from the documentary in there. And I think whenever I think we're supposed to have a mom and dad. I think that's normal. You and I, we're going to come back on another show. We're going to talk about faith and the importance of certain things. And I think we're meant to have mom and dad. And if we don't have mom and dad, whether we lose both, whether we lose one, there's a part of us that's never whole. It's never complete. So when you talk about Rudy, the letter and his feelings, it was, this is crap. It's exactly what you're saying. Well, he missed something. All of the kids missed something, but he missed more because he's sent over to another family. He's not really with his siblings. He's not with his father, and neither are the siblings. He's not with his mother because now he's being raised by, foster parents. And now, a lot happens. When you see this now, was there any holes in you that you feel now I can heal because now I know? Or was that never something that impacted you? So it's just, wow, now I understand them, but it doesn't change me. Or does it actually fill something in you?
Well, that's a good question. So let's go back to the motivation for the book. So now I'll take you back to 2006. I'm sitting on the airplane with my wife, and we're on the runway in Rome, but my mind's already on a flight of its own, trying to figure out, how am I ever going to tell this story? How are we going to tell people what happened? My wife got me to agree to two things. One, you got to write this story. I said, okay, I'll do that. Two, every single one of our kids, and we have 7 of them, have to go to San Demetrio. Ironically, the scarier thought to me was that I was going to have to get 6 other people back to Italy, because it took me 50 years to get there for the first time, right? But that was the thing, and really what it was is driven by my love for Rudy, and the book is dedicated to my Uncle Rudy and to anyone who ever longed for the assurance that their parents loved them. And I think what the story shows is love is expressed in different ways, okay? Rudy, for whatever reason, felt like he didn't completely get the love expressed the way he wanted it to be expressed. But does that mean that love was not expressed? I'll leave that up to the reader to decide, okay? I think that there are multiple things that can be true. It's part of perspective. And the important thing in life from this is to build from there, which Rudy did. Rudy did build from there. And we talked about Fidelta Soldier Prisoner, your movie, which I absolutely love. And one of the main lessons that I got from that, I don't have to tell you, but for your listeners, there was one of the gentlemen, one of the prisoners wanted to commit suicide. Why? Because he found out that his wife in Italy had died. And fortunately, a commander was very empathetic, and he got them involved in a process. And what they did was they built that beautiful chapel that was there. And I say that it's an overriding principle when you're in pain or when you're in doubt. The thing to do is to not wallow in self-pity, but to do something great for other people that is bigger than yourself.
Right. That's right.
Okay? And that gave him something to live for. And Rudy found those things in his life, including his dear wife, Nan. That's how I think that you manage that. And I think that the overwhelming theme of this movie is love and how love is expressed. And that's why the title is The Love of San Demetrio. I knew the title back in 2006. I saw the cover. I knew what the cover was going to be. All I had to do was write the book. That would have to wait 15 years until I was done working full-time to actually write, and that's a whole nother story.
And I totally understand that, by the way. Sometimes, sometimes you're doing something right, when things pop out really easily. To your point, you knew what you wanted to call it, you knew the scenery, you knew there was a story here, and then it was just a question of filling in the blanks. And I totally understand that, because that sort of thing happened to me when I was doing, my film, and even the one I'm doing this year. There were just certain clues that said, you know what, this is right. And I do want to, but before we kind of wrap up, I do want to broach the faith, because you and I, kind of introduce ourselves, off camera, and we've talked about that, we're men of faith, or we try to be. I know I try to be. I know you try to be. And all these things we do, and you're kind of touching on it. It's not so much my legacy so much as it's honoring other people. Do you find it hard, when you're trying to pick these projects, to say, look, I've got to sell this. I've got ironically enough, considering what you did for a living, but I've got to sell this. I've got to push this thing. And yeah, it's pushing myself, and it's it's a little bit, you can't lie, it's a little bit about us. We're doing the effort, and we want to be, we want to say, hey, look what I did. Nobody can sit there and say I'm doing it completely altruistically, and there's nothing to do with me. We all have a little bit of that. We can't deny that. But do you ever, when you write this and you're pushing you're talking to people about the book, do you ever feel that when it comes to your faith, you say, is this right? Should I sell this, or should I just kind of let it go? How does the effort of writing and selling a book and promoting a book, does that conflict with your faith at all?
That is really an outstanding question, Steve. And I'll tell you a lot of the things that I wrestled with. Okay. First of all, I thought that it wasn't going to be, through those 15 years, I thought it was going to be that difficult to write the book. I thought, well, I've got Connie's story. I got Rudy's story. I got my memories. I got notes there. This shouldn't be that difficult. Well, it was much more difficult than I thought, because I realized as I started writing the book, I saw it as scenes of a movie, okay? And it came out really good as scenes of a movie, but I had to put it and make it become a book. And then I realized, and I really fought this, that I had to put myself in the story. How could people appreciate what would happen 50 years later if I didn't take them through that process and I didn't get people to believe? So that was one thing, the challenge of that. The other thing was just the idea that this was really a tribute to Rudy, and I had to get it written for him. So the faith part comes in with this, and I talk about in the beginning that doubts, every journey has doubts. Well, what do you do before you enter something that's a doubt, whether it's a test at RMU or, whatever it is, you're making a movie for the first time or whatever you're doing. In my life, you pray.
Amen.
So I found that St. Francis de Sales is the patron saint of writers. So I read that prayer. I've got it posted. I'm looking at it right in front of me. I read it before I wrote every day. And, I thought, if something comes out in this book that naturally oozes out, that's part of faith, it's going to be in there. If it doesn't, I'm not going to force it in there. And so I think that those types of things just ooze out and come naturally. Now, in answer to your question on publishing, I knew what I wanted in a publisher after, when I retired and I started looking for publishers for another book that I had written, and I knew what I wanted. I wanted 100% ownership of my work. I did not want to give that up, okay? And I wanted final editing. I didn't want somebody else to take that. And everybody was saying, well, we'll print your book, but we do the final editing, we'll do this, we'll do the marketing and all that stuff. And I thought, I don't want to do that. The other thing, and this is going to sound crazy, okay, but I am uncomfortable with and don't like the idea of, my wife said, we should have a book signing. Let's have it at our house. I said, no, I can't do that. She said, why? I said, because I can't have books there and be selling books. They don't go together. We invite people to our house all the time. I don't want them thinking they have to come here and they have to buy it. So I don't bring books with me when I give talks. I tell people, you go on the website. It's very easy. Buy Lou Bruno, not purchase B-Y, but B-Y, LouBruno.com. That takes you to Sea Hill Press, which is the publisher, and you can order the book. This is about gratitude and about giving back. I've probably given more books away than I've sold. I've given it to the Heinz History Museum in Pittsburgh. I've given it to the University of Pittsburgh, where I've gone. I could go on and on, the colleges and universities and the Italian heritage organizations that I've donated it to. Why? Because this is about giving back. Why? Because we owe our ancestors a debt of gratitude we cannot repay.
That's right.
We cannot repay it.
You can live your life
I
to the
can give away
fullest.
1 million
Right.
books,
But-
and it would still only be a down payment.
But you live your life to the fullest, and that's how you honor them. You honor the people
You live
that
your
came
life
here.
to the
Right.
fullest. And you get it, for people thinking about, you get so much out of writing a book. I'll tell you just one story real quick. When I was writing the book, I would write a unit of chapters, and then I would send it to various groups of friends and people that I knew. Avid readers, lawyers, people that were, very meticulous on spelling and all that other stuff, people that were Italian, people that weren't Italian. I wanted to get a feel for, and I said, this is my goal. When I write a chapter, every chapter is going to be a little story. When you finish reading that chapter, I want you to be able to say, you know what? I really enjoyed that. And I can't wait to pick up the book tomorrow night and read the next chapter. I said, if you can't say that, you better tell me, and you better let me know. And people were very good about that. One of the stories, again, this is payback for the book. As I'm writing the book, before its publisher, have some dear friends and family friend, and the wife is taking care of a husband that does at times have short-term memory problems and is dealing with health problems. So what she did when she got the chapters is she read them to him out loud. Well, I asked her, how's it going? She said, when I read the first chapter of the book, he started talking. He started talking about his own town, what it was like where he grew up, and paralleled everything. And I thought to myself, okay, this book has already paid for itself. It's given a caregiver who's taking care of someone she loves a special moment of time that she could never have had and never get back. So you look at that and you say, that's the payback for the book.
That's it. By the way, you actually made me think of a few things when you talk about, I grew up in Pittsburgh, but we definitely played the exact same games on the street. I mean, that's what you did. You played, you called it curveball. I can't remember what we played wiffle ball, but we might call it somewhere else. But yeah, the curbs were first, second was in the middle of the street, and third was the other street, across the street. And, usually played in an intersection, and we knew where the home run was, and off of buildings would count or not count, and all kinds of just crazy rules that you come up when you're living between buildings. But, it worked for us, and it created a lot of memories. So, when you read something like this, you really do, it is totally understandable why people kind of end up on their own memory lane, because you find out, you're like, you know what? I get it. I've been on that same street, and I understand. But Lou, I want to thank you again for being my guest today, because I told you I usually go 30, 35 minutes, but we're way over, and I don't care. I enjoy a good conversation, but I am going to have you back, because we are going to hit the faith conversation, because I think that is something that should not be diminished. I think that it should be a part of our lives. We can't say we believe certain things and then not live it and not have it permeate the things that we do. I especially love the fact that you said you prayed before, you wrote a chapter before you wrote. That is something I started trying to do, earnestly before filming. Now I try to say, listen, bless my work. Let my work bless you, Lord, because I don't want to just do something. I don't want to just be another, whatever. I want it to mean something. I want it to mean something to people that they appreciate, and I want it to honor people and honor the good Lord. And I do believe that, and I'm not afraid to proclaim my faith. And so I appreciate the fact that you and I sound like we're on a very similar page. So thank you again for coming. I'm going to put the links down there to your site where they can get your book. So Lou, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your show. I admire your work, and I wish you all the best, and looking forward to talking to you again. And hopefully when I get up in Pennsylvania the next time, we might be able to get together. I just was kicking myself this morning when I looked up and I saw it's going to be September 11th that you're going to be in Pennsylvania, because unfortunately we'll be out of the country during that time. But I would have been there. I'll tell you that. But maybe before then or after then, we'll get together.
Let me know. And I tell you what, if you ever want to, and this goes to anybody listening, if you can make your way out to Chambersburg, let me know. I will get you the tour. So take you in the chapel, take you around, explain stuff to you. See if we can't even get Paul to sneak us up into the tower. It's 65-foot church tower that they built. Looks like a Florentine tower. So, I love it.
Hey, Steve, in answer to your earlier question, there are two other things I wanted to mention.
Sure.
One is my cousins in Italy are working on an Italian translation.
Oh, fantastic.
So I hope to have an Italian translation of it soon. And the other thing is the feedback that I'm getting from the people that read the book. Two things. One is when I finished reading it, I wanted to pick it up and read it all over again. Now, part of that is because they get the punchline at the end, and they go back and they want to, relive the mystery of it. The other feedback that I get is I can't wait to see the movie. And I've always
and you and I
thought of this as a movie.
You and I are going to talk. Book. That's right, because you and I are going to be doing some stuff
it'll
together.
It'll become a movie. I don't know if it'll be you or it'll be someone else, but
hey, I'm pretty good.
Pick this up, and it'd be a great story.
No, Lou, we're going to talk because, like I said, we're going to talk about the one I'm doing this summer. We're going to be working together. We're not done. I'm not done with you, sir. With all due respect, but listen, Lou, again, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it, and look forward to talking again.
Thank you, Steve. God bless.
All right, folks, I will be right back. I have another guest coming up, but don't worry. We're not going to talk books, but we're going to talk something a little bit different, and I'm hoping, and it's another event I'm going to see you at, so more to follow, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, Bucko fans. This is Steve Stefano Mancini, international award-winning filmmaker and host of the award-winning Italian Impact podcast. Join us in celebrating the Italian community on August 23rd as the Pirates take on the Colorado Rockies. This special offer includes an exclusive Pirates co-branded Italian hat and loaded value, good to use on concessions and merchandise on the day of the game. Also, a portion of each ticket will be donated to a local Italian charity. So come experience a unique blend of sports, culture, and community during Italian Heritage Night at PNC Park. Grazie, ci vediamo.
Ciao, Chrissy. Your Italian got so much better. Brava.
Grazie. It's because I learned the best way possible.
How so?
Well, I learned that with apps, grammar books, and even YouTube videos, I could only get so far. I had to immerse myself. I noticed I did best when I was in Italy visiting family. That's where my level really soared.
And wow, did it work?
Thanks. I became much more confident, fast. That's why I created Footsteps Through Time. It's an Italian language experience. You don't just take Italian classes, you immerse yourself in a real Italian village. With lots of fun activities and excursions, it's life-changing.
I see. So, no more boring grammar, impersonal apps, just real conversations, real culture, and delicious food, of course.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this. Learn Italian by actually becoming part of the local community for a week and living it. So if you've been dreaming of Italy and the language, check out Footsteps Through Time in Italy.com. Book now and join the experience.
Andiamo!
Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Palucci Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Palucci Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. All right, folks, welcome back. And again, I want to thank Lou Bruno for his wonderful interview. Great conversation and just some great takeaways from the discussion. And always down in the description of the podcast, I like to put the links down there for, any organizations, sites, books, music, whatever. It's down there. Go follow them. Go buy, whatever. In this case, I really do encourage you to buy Lou's book. I'm just about, like I said, I'm more than halfway done with it. And he's right. It's a tough one to put down. It's very good, and especially you're going to kind of connect to some of the backstories just because, like I was saying to Lou, we've all kind of lived a little bit of that life growing up, especially if you've grown up, in the city, with kids playing sports on the street. I mean, all of that just really resonates right away. And then, when you do make that trip back, you're going to find, there's some connections, some roots there that you didn't realize you had, even if you don't think you have them now. That's why I always encourage you, go find your history, go find your relatives, go read your story, go learn who those people were that came here a long time ago, because that sacrifice and that willingness to do what they did is the reason you're where you're at right now. So again, I encourage you to go out and do some homework. Now, with that being said, I'm going to switch gears. Not going to talk about a book, but we're going to talk about something else, something that I'm also, as I get involved in the community, I find there's a lot of good organizations out there. And I have a very special guest that I was introduced to through Melissa at the Heinz History Center. And again, I want to thank Melissa. I'm going to have her on the show soon too, because she's doing a lot of wonderful things for the Italian community. But my next guest is Laura Ronayne from the San Rocco Foundation. And Lauren, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm great and really excited to be here to talk about the San Rocco Foundation and our upcoming 100th anniversary.
And Lauren, I did want to, again, thank you for coming on. And it's one of these weird things, I keep telling people, if you know someone you think should be on the show, send them my way. And Lauren is the perfect example of that. So Lauren, after we got the introductions, I was like, San Rocco, 100 years, huh? And I started doing some homework on that. But before we jump into that, I always like to, kind of introduce the guests. So tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? And, how'd you get involved in the San Rocco Foundation?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So I was born and raised in Beaver County, Aliquippa and Center Township, and I have been a lifelong participant in San Rocco, just like my Nano and Nana and my mom as well, and many of my family members. So, I'm kind of a lifer on the San Rocco activities and everything that it means and represents for, my family and my faith and my community. But I got involved from a very young age, whether it was helping out at the weekend celebrations. We have a 3-day celebration where we not only honor our saints, but we get to have some fun along the way, some great food and friends and, a lot of family coming to visit. But also, as I've gotten older, I've taken on other responsibilities with San Rocco Foundation, whether it's, leading the charge on Sunday morning for our procession, and now as a co-chair of the foundation. So, that's kind of been my progression. I've never missed a San Rocco, Steve. This is, I'm really actually happy.
Wow, 100 San Roccos.
Yeah,
you don't even look that old.
Don't tell anybody I do a really great face cream. No, this is my 40th San Rocco. I've never missed.
That's awesome, though. That's fantastic. By the way, I want to interrupt because you know what? You said something that I had like a flashback. You said lifer, and that takes me back to when I was in the military. And when I was a young sailor, I was overseas, and I was just absolutely miserable. And we used to talk about the guys that were going to re-enlist, and we'd call them lifers in a very kind of negative way. Anyways, I ended up doing 20 years in the military, so it turned out I was a lifer. Anyways, but so let's go back to the San Rocco, because you obviously then you must have grown up in an Italian household.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from the Costanza family here in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, and we grew up in a very, Italian-American, also Lebanese-American household, where not only was San Rocco such a significant part of our life, getting ready for the celebration, the mass, the meetings, the events, all of that, but really just, Italian-American to the core, faith, food, raised by Nano and Nana, that community of like family, and really, all of the traditions, the 7 fishes, on Christmas Eve, the Easter celebrations as well. In my family, we always say there's 3 holidays, Christmas, Easter, and San Rocco. So really we are a big Italian family who just, we really look forward to this upcoming, celebration in August of every year, the second weekend in August every year.
Now let's talk about that. San Rocco, what is the connection with your particular community. And obviously the fact that it's going 100 years says this is something that's being embraced by the community. So how did it even get started 100 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So our family is from Patrica, Italy, which is just, we always say when you go, you take the train from Rome to Frosinone, and then when you get off the train, you look up the mountain, and there's our family, there's our ancestral home, Patrica, Italy. We also have many family members that are there. They actually celebrate the Feast of San Rocco. It's our patron saint.
So this was brought from Italy then?
This was brought from Italy when our families came to the U.S. and they were really, Steve, looking to establish, a new community here, bring their Italian culture, have some of that, life back in Italy here in the U.S. in Aliquippa. And they all settled in Plan 11. They were working for J&L or other, companies within the community building Aliquippa. And they brought over this tradition of honoring their patron saint. So it started in 1925, and the tradition has continued on since then. Originally it started a smaller festival, a mass, kind of a smaller scale. And over the years, it's grown to, as I mentioned, that 3-day celebration. We continue the tradition of having a mass on Sunday morning. Starts at Jean Rosati's house where we receive the San Rocco banner. Go to St. Titus for mass on Sunday morning. Monsignor Cellini says the mass. At the end of the mass, Jimmy Mansuetti yells "Viva San Rocco," and then we kick off the procession after, where we've got hundreds of family banners that come. We've got our San Rocco band as well, and we carry our saint through the streets of Aliquippa during the procession as well.
It's funny you said something really interesting, and I think a lot of people are missing something. When the families came over here, they wanted to bring that tradition with them because it meant something to them. It meant so much that when they came to America, they wanted to keep doing it. Now, why do I kind of stress that point? Because there are a lot of organizations and clubs and traditions that are gone. They're forgotten, or the people got old, they didn't groom the next generation to take over, or in some cases it's almost intentional. And I'm going to kind of gripe about one thing. Where I grew up in Bloomfield, they recently demolished the church built by Italian American architects. It was kind of a staple of the Italian American community. A lot of memories there. Church comes in and bulldozes it. I mean, now any thought of reviving any traditions in that church are gone. And I think what you guys are doing, and that's why you're here for me, Lauren, because I want people to hear this and say, we got two options. We can either be doing this 100 years from now, and that's awesome, or we can have bulldozers and other people knocking our traditions down. And I am supporting you guys, and I hope people can join you guys. Tell me a little bit about the event. I know you kind of went over the logistics of it, but when is the event? What's the actual date of the event?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really agree. I think it's just so important. We're so excited to get to 100 years, but really we talk so much now, Steve, about how do we get to the next 100 years? And I'm like, the next generation. I'm not even that young anymore. So we're always thinking about how we can continue this tradition and make sure that our kids are involved and the families stay connected and together as well. The celebration is going to be August 8th, 9th, and 10th this year. It is at Mary Queen of Saints will be at the St. Francis Cabrini campus as well. Because it's our 100th, we're going to open our gates at 4 p.m. We've got a really fantastic lineup of events and activities, music, shows, all of that come. We've got some really great Italian food, homemade, of course. We've got some great vendors as well. So it's really become not only, for us, because it's 100 years and we're so excited to celebrate, but really for the community, the tri-state community and beyond. We've got actually family members who for years, but especially this year, have come in from all over the country as well to help us celebrate. We've got, Patricanis in America who come to celebrate this special event every year. And so it really is just a fantastic 3 days to celebrate our culture and our heritage. That all culminates, Steve, though, for me anyway, I think it's the most special piece is with our mass and our procession on Sunday morning through the streets of Aliquippa, kicks off at the corner of Polk and Division Street. And like I always say, it starts at the corner of Polk and Division Street. And I have to remind myself that's kind of like if you know kind of thing, right, where it starts. But it's, we'd love to start it there. It's on the terrace in Aliquippa. If you're from Aliquippa, you know where that is as well. So it's a traditional place where we start our procession. As I said, Mass at St. Titus. It's always a beautiful celebration, watching those family banners come into the church, listening to the San Rocco March. It's one of the most, special moments, I think, certainly in my year, but really, I live for it. I just can't wait. I get goosebumps every time I hear it. So, and then as I said, we walk through the streets of Aliquippa for our procession to honor our saint.
No, I'll tell you what, I think it's awesome because it's traditions that, we're just losing it. We're losing our culture. And I just think you gotta keep doing it. And I'll tell you something else that you said. Kids, they might not, you might not think they care, and they probably don't care. And they're like, oh, God, I don't want to do this. But, you're planting a seed. And the more that they come every year, eventually it becomes a part of them. And then they do it. At first, they do it out of obligation. And then they develop a passion for it. And then at some point, they're you. They're the ones going, I want to make sure that this doesn't get forgotten. I want to pass it down. So if it's important to you, at some point, it's going to click to them that it's going to be important to them. And then the older folks are going to just be so happy that it's not being lost. So to them, it's like, hey, we're not losing. We're leaving a legacy behind. You're kind of driving the ship, but you're in charge of grooming the next generation, those younger folks that you don't think are interested, but you are planting a seed whether you know it or not. And that is so important to keep this going.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a 9-year-old son. His name is John Rocco. And I have a 6-year-old daughter as well. Her name is Karina. And they, this has become such a part of their life as well. My son is always like, when do we start setting up for San Rocco? When can I, what, so excited to hear about what the activities are. And so we, it is so important. And I, like a lot of my cousins who are a part of the foundation, my paisans who are, my family from Patrica as well, they're the next generation, are, now a part of the foundation, and they are bringing their kids into that as well. And I think one of the things that, I think for me is so important, and I know a lot of, my foundation members feel the same way. It's like San Rocco just isn't one weekend a year. It's who we are. It's where we came from. It's what our family from Patrica worked so hard, to have this new life and to maintain this heritage in the U.S. And so it's so much more than just, 3 days of events, a mass and a procession every year. It's who we are. It's our faith. It's our culture. It's our heritage. And it's who I want my kids to be as well. And so, it's really important for us to continue the tradition. I think that we're always looking for new volunteers, new individuals to get involved in, the foundation. We always need help. It's open to all, and whether you're Italian or not, you can be Italian for the weekend. That's for sure. We're happy to have any help that we can get.
No, I totally get that. Now, Lauren, before I let you go, what's the website? And I know there is one.
The website is www.sanroccofoundation.org. It's got all of our events. It's got some great information on some of our charitable work. Again, in addition to just, a 3-day celebration. We also are a charitable organization, and we have, we have donated thousands of dollars to local children's charities, food banks, libraries, music education, and a scholarship program as well. So there's a lot of information just on, San Rocco Foundation, who we are, what we do as well. We also have contact information available on the website if you're interested in hearing more about it. And then in addition, Steve, I also wanted to mention that because it's our 100th celebration this year, we've also added some really great events to the lineup as well. We've got a bocce tournament on the 26th of July. We've got a car cruise on the 27th of July. We've got a color run on the 2nd of August to kick off our San Rocco week as well. That'll be through Aliquippa too. We always have our annual golf outing on the 4th of August as well, and then we get into our celebration weekend. So all of that information is available on our website.
Well, Lauren, I'm going to let you go, but before you go, I'm going to let everybody know that I'm going to have a link down there in the description of the website. Please click on that link and go see the events, and if there's something you can attend it. I'm going to tell you another kind of a little bit of a gripe. In Pittsburgh, Bloomfield was always known as Pittsburgh's Little Italy. Well, an Italian church just got bulldozed, and there's really no stores left, and there's maybe 1 or 2 restaurants. I don't know what makes it Little Italy anymore. So when I hear that you guys are doing things, I say, you know what, maybe it's time that torch gets passed, because somewhere, somebody's got to be doing something to preserve the culture. And, I'm glad to see that you guys are making sure that in your neck of the woods that you're preserving the Italian-American culture, you're remembering your roots, and you're inviting others along. This isn't an exclusive club. This is something where we as Italian-Americans want to show everyone that we're proud of our culture too. Everyone else can be, so can we, and I think we need communities like yours, groups like yours, to continue doing what you're doing. And for the folks that are listening, if you want to enjoy these events, then you've got to get out there and support them wherever they're happening, when you can. Obviously, we can't attend every single event. I'm going to make it a point to go out there during one of the 3 days, though, just to walk around, because I tell you what, I think I was there last year, and I get my years confused, by the way, Lauren, so forgive me. But, and it was just like, to me, it just felt like I was a kid again going through the old, fair that we used to have at our church, which is now being bulldozed by the diocese. So, people don't know, you don't know what you got till it's gone. So enjoy these events, support these events, get involved in these events before one day people are going, I remember that. Well, they don't do that anymore. Well, let's not hear that. After 100 years, Lauren, I wish you all another 100 years, and I wish you continued success. I'm going to support you, anything I can do to promote you, and I'm going to be out there, and hopefully I'm going to see you in person.
Thank you, Steve. We really appreciate it. I'm so proud and honored to just say that, the Italian spirit, Italian-American community, and everything that represents is alive and well in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. The San Rocco Foundation is just, thrilled to be a part of it and to play some small part in continuing to drive it as well. We'd love, Steve, to see you out for not only the weekend, but I'd love to have you attend our procession as well, in an honored capacity. So if you can make it, we'd love to have you join us for that special day as well. And I really appreciate you having me on your podcast today. As I said, I'm kind of a lifer, so I'd love to talk about San Rocco, everything that it represents.
I love that term, Lauren.
Yeah, I'll just close with, how we kind of finish every celebration weekend. Viva San Rocco, and we hope to see you in August.
You will see me, Lauren. That is for sure. Listen, in the meantime, I hope folks, again, support you. Lauren, you and I are going to talk, because I am going to come out there and find ways to get more involved. But in the meantime, folks, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank you for spending time with me. This show ran a little longer than they usually do, but I think I had 2 wonderful guests. And please go down in the description, click on those links, support my guests. Remember, my show is not about me. It's about bringing wonderful people on here to celebrate the Italian-American culture. And sometimes those folks won't even be Italian, but it's just about a celebration. It's about just having a moment in life where we can just listen to something and just feel good when we're done. And I hope this show is doing that for you. So the fact that you're tuning in means that we must be doing something right. So thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week.